So let's just take a moment for prayer and to become really present to this time and this space, to center our thoughts, center them, take them out of all the things we've just been thinking all day. We've had a long day of things. And take a breath and center ourselves in the place where we find God inside. Even just a small mustard seed size of that right now. Just affirming that we are here now. And in this stillness, we see ourselves moving forward in the right mind. So we see ourselves releasing, because part of the theme tonight is releasing thoughts that would keep us from the truth, and opening to knowing more and more and expressing more and more of the truth that we know to be in our lives. Knowing that God's good is just waiting for us, and it's not far away. Just taking a breath in, knowing where that breath is, and there it is. We open our minds to cleansing and our hearts to peace and our bodies to wholeness in this journey through the dynamic laws of healing. Thank you, God. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Okay, we got two packed chapters tonight. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3.
I'm gonna turn down.
Starting on my book, I think so far all the books are at least the same. I know some of the old Unity books are not the same, but it appears that Ponder's books are the same. So it should be on page 25 if you have a book. And I marked some things, but the reason why I like you to read ahead is so that you can mark some things. And then that way, and if there are things that you'd like to read or you would like to talk about, that we can have those as well as just things that I mark.
Mhm.
So starting with the No Law of Healing on page 25. And I like the opening that she has here, well, starting in the second paragraph. It may seem that your body and your circumstances control your thoughts, but quite the opposite is true. Your thoughts control your body and your circumstances. So showing that our body is reflecting our consciousness. And she says, as a man or as a human thinks in their mind, so they are in their bodies. So this is tying us right away into the idea that our thoughts are things, and our thoughts control the things and substances in our body, that our thoughts can rewire our brain. And that's what this chapter is about. Was everyone able to read this chapter?
Yeah.
Anyone read ahead? Or am I just picking out the stuff for us to read? I just want to make it sure that I'm open to anyone who has pages marked as I go, and I tell you to turn to this or turn here, to let me know if there's something you picked out so that we don't skip it. Yeah, okay. And I really, I like her denials. She gives a lot of really good denials in here, and especially towards the end of the chapter. And I hope that if you don't have it, that you can at least go through the denials at the end. And so in case I forget, we get all into and then run out of time, because there's so much material, that like a suggested homework would be at the end to really try to go through and use some of these denials. And first of all, before we even start in her stuff, just opening up to this idea of the no law and the idea of denial. Just in your mind, you've been obviously in unity. What are we saying when we say a denial? Like in your mind and your philosophy, what you know it to be, what is a denial? Why do we use one? Just get a little background knowledge before we start reading. Anyone?
I think we're affirming that something is not true. There is no truth or power in the statement we deny.
No truth or power. I like that. Antoinette?
That's a great way of saying that, Joyce. Thank you. And for me, it's also a pattern interrupt. Because I can, let the stuff of life show up and I can let it start to take over. But if I do a pattern interrupt with a denial, or however I do that denial, then that shifts my energy and my focus and gets me out of the appearances and back in alignment with the truth that I know.
I like both of those. I think that's I know that Reverend Kathy often says cancel, cancel, And I know someone else, another teacher that I had said, his mother said, cancel, cancel, order, order. So instead of just saying cancel, like right after it affirmed, and just as brief as the cancel, affirm right after the denial, affirmed order. So cancel, cancel, order, order. I really like that too. So that way you're not just canceling it, you're replacing it with something like right away. So the idea that I think that we're going to try to get to in this chapter is that it is affirming, and at the same time it's not affirming. It's like becomes before the affirming, especially in the old school, like the denial comes first and then the affirmation. So it's true, and it's also like sequential. So most, especially older New Thought teachers, really believed that denial came first, and she does a really good idea of telling us why. So I want to go ahead and go over to just start in on the first actual subsection, because I think that she gives some examples here. You can go back and read the examples, but her first teaching is on page 26. Disease is self-inflicted. We talked a little bit about this last time, about how she and a lot of older New Thought writers were really bold in saying this. And the whole idea, I think, is before we even get there, it's just to remind you, the idea is that as spiritual beings, we are responsible for expressing our spiritual wholeness. And so she's trying to show like a responsibility that we play and part of our disease. So does someone want to go ahead and start reading for us on page 26 under disease is self-inflicted?
I don't mind.
Thanks, Bobby.
Disease is self-inflicted. As previously stated, the shocking truth about dis-ease is that it is self-inflicted. You inflict dis-ease upon yourself by your fears, resentments, hates, and beliefs in evil. The Hindu scriptures described it. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him. For instance, thoughts of fear release hormones into the bloodstream that can even paralyze the vital nerve centers of the body. Extreme fear actually cooks the corpuscles of the blood. Also, experiments have shown that telling a lie involves real work for the body. Your metabolism, pulse rate, blood pressure, and respiration speed up when you fear, and your eyes tend to get shifty. This is how the false thinking affects the body. Negative appearances in the body are built up and sustained by someone feeling badly about them. What you fear, you multiply. You build up and keep alive the diseased appearance by feeding it the substance of your negative thoughts. When the bad feeling is removed, the diseased appearance starves for lack of attention and nourishment. It has to fade away because it has nothing to sustain it.
Thanks, Bobby.
You're welcome.
So how do you feel about the idea of fear and hate affecting the body? Can you see example of this in your own life, that this is true, that it really does affect health in the body? Anyone?
You know, I've thought about, I know when I was younger and had bad dreams, and have some fear there, you kind of wake up shaking, and so it does affect the body, that's for sure, in a negative fashion. You know, when the body's shaking, just like a car overheating, starts to shake, and that's not good for the body because you're not at peace, you're not at ease or any of that. So.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Anybody else? Antoinette?
One thing that comes to mind is when I hear people say, well, I always get a cold this time of year, or I always get the flu this time of year. And I think that can just set us up in some ways. So I like to add, in the past, I had gotten so that it's not a present experience. That's something that did happen. That doesn't mean that it will happen this season.
Mhm.
I like that. Thanks. Yeah. Joyce?
Yeah, what surprised me was the quote, what you fear, you multiply. I certainly understand the physiology of how fear really hurts us, but multiplies? I mean, I don't know if she means the fears get bigger or it multiplies because it has an impact on the body. But that's probably the one of all the negative thoughts that I struggle with the most.
Yeah, I took the multiply as in kind of like when you're in the mode of attraction and you're really loving and you're saying things that you would love in your life that you are grateful for, that fear has that exact same result in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
So just as we might have a gratitude experience and know that we are multiplying and appreciating, literally appreciating those things in our lives, the prosperity consciousness, that fear could do the exact same thing, but in a negative way. So instead of positively, that it can also have a lot of effect on not just the body, but prosperity and our finances and our relationships also. So it has the exact opposite of effect as gratitude. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what she means.
Mhm.
Anything else there? We can definitely see how releasing fear can be a benefit for the body. In the next section, let's see. Oh, yeah, this is she was talking about the allegory of the Garden of Eden, and I think really what she's getting here, she's trying to get to the idea of our thoughts about good and evil, and the fact that evil even exists, which brings up a really good question, because in Unity we say that evil does not exist. So that's always a really fun topic to talk about and premise about it. So we don't even I'm going to skip down past the actual allegory and talk about the teaching about this duality. So if we want to just, and for sake of time, if we want to go down to, I think it's the fourth paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, it is an allegory that applies in modern times as well when you behold the good. Does somebody want to read that, or I can read it if you can't find it on page 27? It's the fourth paragraph.
can read it if you want me to.
I can do it and then there's
Go
plenty
ahead.
to read. Yeah, it is an allegory that applies in modern times as well. When you behold the good, you are powerful, but the instant you behold evil, you are paralyzed by the darkness of your mind. Evil has no life, substance, or intelligence of itself. It is conjured up by the limited beliefs of man. Evil is a form of darkness that flees in the presence of light and enlightenment. That enlightenment comes as you remind yourself that no evil condition, however trying, is everlasting. Such an experience is actually one in which evil is coming to surface to be freed and released forever. Evil wants to be released from its negation. It wants to be transmuted into good. Thus, it will always move on. A new condition then arises and a new, happier cycle always follows. All the power that evil seems to have has been given it by man, and man alone can withdraw that power. That man has this power to deny and dissolve all integrating, discordant, and disease-forming ideas of evil, and to transmute apparent evil into good is among the greatest discovery of the ages. So, what do we believe about the idea that the evil really is not everlasting, does not exist, wants to be released? I think all those things are kind of interesting. Evil wants to be released. And the idea in unity, what is evil in unity? When we say evil, that has like a meaning in unity, maybe different than the rest of Christianity takes that to mean. What do we even see evil as?
My understanding is evil is the absence of good and the absence of light.
And then we also say, like, God is good and God is everywhere, so there is no absence of good and there is no absence of light.
Mm-hmm.
So we could say that evil is the appearance of the absence of good and the appearance of the absence of light. And so if we're believing in something negative, but this is basically talking about our duality, and it's really trying to get us to see, because it's talking about the two trees and the Garden of Eden, the tree of good and so they're talking about, if we believe that there's evil, we believe that there is something that's not good, or we believe that there could be a lack of good somewhere. So we're trying to get to the oneness idea would be that the reality of it, anything that's realistic, anything that's true is unchanging and eternal. And if there's appearance that's not like that, if we can deny it, that we'll be able to get rid of whatever that belief is, and that we'll be able to then open to the truth that underlies it, that we're not seeing, if that makes any sense. One of my favorite statements that I like Johnny Coleman's prosperity stuff, so I talk about her a lot because I've read all of her books. And she always said, I don't know if she was the first to say it or she just repeated it. She says, there's nothing to be healed, only God to be revealed. Nothing to be healed, only God to be revealed. So to me, like when I read this, that's what I thought about. It's the idea of thinking that it could be any other way, that there could be anything but good underlying all things. And so if we see something as bad or evil, or evil is just the idea of it's a misthought, something acting out of alignment with the way that we would see the good to be, we're not seeing what's truly behind it. So the idea is to go through this first law of healing. She's going to talk about this denial, is to release any untruth, to release any duality, to release anything that's not in alignment or not in oneness And when we release those things, then what is left is good underneath. And what is left in our bodies when we release fear, we release the idea that disease is even a thing, then there's nothing to fix and there's nothing to be healed. Only God to be revealed. The good is always underneath it because we know we can never lack. All right. Anything else in there? Okay, that sets us up for our first like big section here, the first law of healing, where she's actually explaining the idea of denial. It starts on page 28. Yeah, Antoinette?
I just wanted to say there's so much richness in this, and I keep wanting to comment on these different
Oh
things.
yeah, you can.
We could have rich conversations and just deeper dive discussions just on what was just said a few moments ago, because it's just so fascinating. And I'll hold off for now because I know we've got a lot to cover
Oh,
with
that's
two
okay.
years. But it's kind of like, oh, but and this and that. I just want to share real quick that I for a long time would always say evil is living backwards, which
I
it
love that.
yeah.
Yes, I love that. So it's like seeing the opposite. It's seeing that the dualistic side. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would align with unity,
Yeah.
because we have the spiritual focus, and there are the things that are showing up in our world now that, it's kind of like, how does this fit in?
Right.
And I'm not going to list it because you won't know what it is, but so looking at this from a spiritual focus, but this is just so rich.
Yes. Yes. Thanks. So, someone who likes to read, who wants to read the first law of healing, let's just do the first page of it and then stop and see what we have and then do the second because there's 2 paragraphs on page 28 and then 2 on 29. So let's do the first 2 on 28. Who would like to read that? First law of healing.
I'll do it.
Thanks, Jack.
Denial is the first law of healing. Through the use of denial, you withdraw from your mind the negative beliefs and emotions that have played such havoc in your health. Denial is the first practical step towards wiping out your mind the mistaken beliefs of a lifetime. What you believe in, you serve and are served by. As you change wrong beliefs, you will find a change taking place in your troublesome circumstances and bodily conditions. Scientists have long been at a loss to explain why man's body should ever be sick or die if it were properly fed and cleansed. Denial cleanses your mind and body of the belief in evil and its consequent desired physical effects. The word deny not only means to withhold, erase, eliminate, dissolve, withdraw, but also means to declare not to be true that which appears true. Through using the healing law of denial, you begin to erase beliefs from your mind and evil appearances from your body.
Thanks.
Through denial, you can also go a step further and declare not to be true the pain, inharmony, and disease that may still appear for a time. As you deny them power, you rob those appearances of any permanent life, and they fade away from neglect. Through the act of denial, you do not deny the existence of the adverse condition, nor do you hesitate to seek technical treatment for a cure. But along with this, you also begin to go deep within your thinking and recognize the adversity for what it is, a diseased appearance created by your own diseased thinking. You then do something about it. You deny your wrong thoughts that brought it into existence. It is then you learn the truth of that age-old axiom. If you can put a thing out of your mind, you can put it out of your body.
Thanks. Thanks so much. What stood out here for us in this section?
Man. Oh.
Anybody have something that stood out for them? Why do
Well, I
we call-
hadn't heard the axiom,
Yeah,
the thing out of your mind, you can put it out of your body. That sounds really beneficial.
it does.
Tricky sometimes to put something out of your mind.
It
That's
is.
where affirmations come in, to affirm something rather than focus on what is not true.
Yeah. So why would they call this why would she call this the first law instead of having affirmations be first?
You have to clear the space.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You have to, and we know that we have to get rid of something that no longer serves us so that we can make the space for what does to come in. And that's true of, you know, in our prosperity teachings. That's one of the things they say: clean out a closet, clear out the drawers, get rid of your stuff, and
Yes.
make way for the good, make way for the new. And so again, it's coming into alignment.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah. And so it's searching out those beliefs that we might have underlying. A lot of times there are things that we might be believing that we're not even completely aware. It's not completely in the forefront of our consciousness that we are believing. And so making mental effort to really watch for those thoughts or look for those things that we might not see in order to make sure that we clear those out. And people will wonder, and she even talks about it a little bit in here about the why sometimes affirmations don't work. And there could be different reasons, but one of them could be an underlying belief that hasn't been cleared out that we're just not aware of yet. And so looking for that will help us. And then she calls that just the power of no, that denial is just meaning no, like denying that it has power over us. So we say no to letting those thoughts have power and control over our thinking. So the situation is, we're not going to deny that the situation is not a fact, but we're going to not let that fact have power over our thoughts and not let that fact have power over seeing the truth underneath it, that God is in the situation somewhere. So maybe not in the disease of it, not in the evil appearance of it, but is beneath all of that somewhere in something else. And a lot of people might say it's in the lesson, but I would even say maybe, and for a lot of people that's where you find it, but it's somewhere beneath there. There's a law working. And she goes on page 29 to talk about how to use your no power. Since denial dissolves, eliminates, erases, frees, it is your no power for healing. Any thought, statement, or prayer that helps you to say, no, I do not accept this appearance as necessary or lasting in my life, is a denial. Many a case has been healed when someone mentally said, no, 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 while people were talking of the ills involved. I always like her little denials and affirmations she throws in. No, I do not accept this appearance as necessary or lasting in my life. And when I read that, I thought of someone who actually goes to Crossroads Church. And it's someone that I see at school on a daily basis. And I can't even, this has been a while ago, and I can't even remember exactly what I said because it shocked me so much coming from a Crossroads person and how much this is really, how powerful this is. And I was talking about some condition that I had. I was not feeling well. And she just, her face just went dead serious. And she says, no, I do not accept that for you. And I won't let you accept that for you. And I'm like, wow, how wonderful that is to hear not even a Unity person saying that. And I'm like, that is exactly what I needed to hear. And after she said that, I started telling myself that in the mirror. No, I don't accept that for you. When I started having a thought, and there's some part of me inside that just loves to hear that. Like it got permission to not have to follow that belief. And so I feel like actually using the word no, I don't accept that can be a huge, huge, huge help before some kind of affirmation. Does anyone want to go on with that paragraph on 29? You can free yourself.
I can
Thanks,
go
Bob.
on.
Yeah.
You can free yourself from all sorts of troubles when you begin to say no to them instead of continuing to dwell upon them. A seriously sprained ankle was completely healed overnight when the one suffering kept saying no to the pain. During the night, when the pain tried to reappear, the one using denial would say, "It simply cannot be. It is not so. I do not accept this condition. It is nothing. It has no power." Her words prove true.
Thanks. You can stop
Of
there.
course.
Thanks. So I
Okay.
don't know if has anyone ever used a denial like this with any result? I don't know if anyone has actually used that before. Antoinette?
I have not, but I plan on it. I'm going to be going on a long trip, driving to Connecticut and a solo drive. And driving in the past has been one of the more challenging things for me because of, in the past, physical issues. So I will be using that. I will have an experiment and I will report back, and let everybody know how I did that. And I find laughter also helps.
Yeah, oh yeah. They have that years ago it was way more popular, the laugh therapy. Do you remember that? Does anybody remember a laugh therapy? Like was really popular for all kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are possible. If you have the book, you can underline. I can in your notes that I send. I'm going to have some of these denials in the notes too. So it's really good if you haven't tried them before to practice them. Now, some people don't like to use denials. They just skip right past them and say, "Well, I affirm. I affirm," and that's great if you get results from that. And Ponder truly believes that denials, especially in the case of something that hasn't been working for a while, should be done first. And she believes on page 31, all people need denial. All people need denial. Is there someone who wants to read the first paragraph there under all people need denial?
I'll be happy to read.
Thanks, Joyce.
I just want to say that as we were reading that, I really felt the power of no.
Yeah.
It's a very strong word.
Yes.
All people need denial. There are also people who turn away from denial, considering it to be an unpleasant word. They haughtily say, I do not use the healing law of denial. I do not need it. Such misguided souls are usually the ones who need it the most. Everyone needs to use the healing law of denial because everyone has negative beliefs that need to be dissolved. The ancients believed that there were 7 layers of negation in the mind of man that stood between him and his good, and that these could be continually cleansed through no attitudes of mind. Biblical symbology substantiates this belief through the story of the leper, Naaman, who was healed after following Elisha's instruction to wash in the Jordan River 7 times. 2 Kings 5:10. Don't be afraid of the word denial. It does not mean that the foregoing of comfort and the good things of life. It does not mean to make oneself miserable by giving up anything of value. True denial is letting go of the lesser to make room for the greater. Denial is a mental process by which you surrender all the old ghosts of fear, worry, sorrow, sickness, sin, and suffering that have haunted you and kept your good from you. These ghosts were figments of your imagination. Through denial, you cleanse them from your conscious and subconscious phases of mind, perhaps without even realizing just what they are. As you cleanse your mind of negative beliefs, you withhold the substance of your thought from them. You disrobe them, rob them of their power and their very existence.
Thank you. Very nice. Any takeaways from the section on the idea that all people need denial? Antoinette?
That was a real powerful and potent passage. And I like that denial clears the lesser to make room for the greater.
Mm-hmm.
And for the people that deny denials, the thought that came to mind is, I wonder how many of us pay attention to our words, because there are so many times where people who, especially those I know that are of a unity mindset, whether they attend unity or not, of a unity mindset. And and then like we'll have a discussion and then they'll add, I hope, or something that kind of, it's like they don't have that faith, because I think faith is a part of this, even though it's not been mentioned. And so I like how she keeps going deeper into it and talking about it in different ways to help us understand how important denials can be.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I like the way she talks about the ghosts. She calls them ghosts. Denial is a mental process by which you surrender all the old ghosts of because they're really not true, right? So we're surrendering things. Why do we do that? I'm not the only one, right? Sometimes there's things that we hold on to, right? That like we know we should let go of, but we hold on to, and sometimes we don't even know we're holding on to them. It's like we want to keep doing what we've always done because we just don't know any other way, maybe. There are some little things that we keep holding on to, and the denials are a very powerful way to cleanse those things. And she goes on 32 in the second paragraph. Affirmations cannot replace denial. So she's just clarifying a little bit more. She says to mentally affirm a healthy condition without first denying and destroying the negative emotions that cause your ill health is like attempting to build a new house on a site already occupied by an old building. before your problems can be resolved, there must be a mental and emotional house cleaning. The healing laws of denial, forgiveness, and release, as found in this and the next 2 chapters, are offered you for that purpose. So the idea is to erase and replace. Erase and replace. Can you see any power in maybe, I'm pretty sure that even though we know about denial, even those of us who know it use it less often, can we see any benefit in trying this out in our life somewhere? Can you find anywhere in your life where you can find that maybe this would be something that you could try? Maybe it's a relationship, or it could be a prosperity money issue, it could be a health issue. Is there anywhere you can see where this could possibly something you could try out along with your affirmations? And what the power might be for that. She goes on the bottom of page 33. She's talking about a woman who's been using affirmations just as an example. And the second to the last paragraph, the very bottom of the last sentence, the woman asks herself, why haven't affirmations helped this situation? And she says, when this woman learned of the healing power of denial, she realized why. Affirmations make firm. To say affirmations in the midst of inharmony is to make firm or say yes to the false beliefs that cause the inharmony. This only invites more confusion into the situation, and the lady proved it. So even if we are affirming the right things on top of it, if there is a belief underneath, so say I'm affirming in my health that I am whole and well and healed, and there's something in my thinking underneath there that really just believes I'm sick and that I'll never get better. If I'm affirming over the top of that, the universe doesn't hear my words. The universe picks up on my feeling vibration underneath my words. And so it's the more aware I can be of that feeling that I have of inharmony that she talked about, or the feeling that like something in my body just doesn't feel right. And oh my gosh, what if I'm afraid, what if I just never get better? What if I end up having to have surgery? So the universe is going to pick up on that underlying thought, and that is what I'll affirm, that those nice words over the top of it are going to be making firm that belief that's underneath it. Yeah. So the more and more we kind of dig into this, the more and more we really see that maybe adding some denials to our practices could be really, really life-changing. Anybody else ideas on that before we move on? Or anything that I skipped? Because I'm going to be skipping to page 34 if you don't stop me.
As we're talking, I been practicing how I could use denials, and it's hard. I'm so used to using affirmations. Creating this words for a denial is a little challenging.
Yeah, and that's why a practice of, generally speaking, you don't just do one without the other. It's just like the shredding bowl ceremony that we have at the beginning. We let it go, and then we affirm right away what we want to see. However, when I found in the past, when I've used these sometimes, and then I'll go back and forth, like I use them for a while and then they fall away. And then I'm like, oh gosh, I haven't been using these in denials. However, just dropping the affirmations for a while and just maybe for a week or so, just practicing, or maybe a month, depending on who you are, practice using the denials just to get used to them. Just to get used to like verbalizing and wording it. And then what I found is I'm so used to doing affirmations, sometimes affirmation would pop up automatically anyway. Or I could use a really general affirmation like the guy's mom that says, cancel, cancel, order, 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 affirming order in the situation. something very generic that I could just always use after every denial to make it easy so I'm not missing it. But just really focusing on it for a little while in the long run makes it easier to do both. Because it is funny to like use the wording. And even though they say, Fillmore always said, if you read in the revealing word, you can go to truthuni.net and read his definition for denial. He says that you need to really be careful with the power that you put into the denial. Like, you don't say cancel, cancel, order, order. Like you say cancel, cancel, order, order, like flatly. Even though the idea is that you're not supposed to put too much of a charge into a denial like you do an affirmation. On page 34 in the next section, she says you must be emphatic about it all the more. So I don't know if we think about what she means by emphatic doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use huge emotion. But somebody want to read that section on 34 at the bottom when you're trying to meet a hard condition?
I can.
Oh, thank you, Linda.
You must be emphatic. When you're trying to meet a hard condition, you cannot gently tap at it with your thoughts, words, and prayers and expect to achieve a satisfying result. You must do something more definite, more emphatic. Ancient philosophers found that hard conditions could be completely broken up and dissolved through extensive use of denial. You can use denials and dissolve your hardest trials because denials contain a cleansing of free power. Nothing straightens out the mind like looking all claims of evil bodily boldly in the face with the denial. No, 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 it's not so. You have no power. You are nothing. Get thee hence. Not believing in evil takes the sting out of evil. When you remove evil's sting, you also remove its power.
Thank you. So the idea that we do something definite and that we're being bold with it is still really important in her teachings, even though we don't need to be super energetic emotionally about the denial like we are with an affirmation. And then she gives a lot of examples. So I'm going to kind of skip through some of these examples so that we can move on to the next chapter. But a couple things I do want to point out, like she has some denials on page 36 and 37. The healing power of science on 38. I'm going to skip around. So, oh wait, yeah, is that where I wanted to go? Yep, that's where I wanted to go. Okay. The healing power of silence. She also talks about not talking about our problems and not complaining as a form of denial, of not giving power to something. So if we have a diagnosis or we have an ailment, not complaining about it, not talking about it, especially talking about it with the wrong kinds of people who we know is not going to be able to hold space for it in our head. Sometimes just being silent about it can take the power out of it. So saying nothing is its own form of denial, if that makes sense. So you can stop, she says in the here, you stop nourishing that thought when we're not complaining about it, we're not talking to people about it, and we're not calling it my. I think we talked about that last time, like my disease or my diagnosis, or not owning that diagnosis, especially not with our words. And be careful who we say it to. Like a lot of times my conversation with my mother about things that are going on in my body are way different than it would be with a Unity person, or like when I talk to Reverend Kathy, or it's going to be a lot different because my mom is going to take everything to worry, 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 and she's going to want to talk all about it, worry, 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 which is going to magnify things. On page 39, I just want to go through this paragraph in the middle of that. One of the finest ways you can invoke the healing law of denial is in just keeping quiet about your problems, as did this woman that was in the example. Stop feeding them the substance of your thoughts, words, and emotions. Also, watch that you do not criticize in secret. that you cease from even silently finding fault with another. Put away sarcasm from your speech. Stop complaining. Do not prophesy evil for yourself or others. The ancient Greeks avoided a grumbler or one who foretold misfortune because he brought them bad luck. Refrain from accusing others of evil in any form. So again, remember, criticizing others there's parts of us subconsciously that cannot tell the difference in oneness between us and others. So when we criticize verbally others, there's part of us that's going to hear that criticism as us. And even though we mean it for them, we're the one that receives the negativity in this belief, in this philosophy, and this belief. So putting complaining out, I know that years ago there was the Complaint-Free World where you wore a bracelet for 21 days. That is every time you complain, you find yourself complaining, you move the bracelet to the other wrist and you try to go 21 days without moving the bracelet. And a lot of people have found just stopping to complain really helps them both financially and helps their health because they've gotten rid of a lot of the negativity. Questions about the idea of silence as a form of denial?
I think that's a very powerful tool. And it will help us to stop, to at least minimize speaking before we think, and to ourselves and to others. And the other thing I'd like to comment on is when we criticize, that's a form of projection. And projection is where we see something in others that we either have experienced, or whether it's subconscious or not, feel about ourselves. And so that I like that she mentions that.
Mm-hmm.
The power of silence can be a healing balm on many levels.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read Louise Hay or listened to any of her tapes. Louise Hay also says the same thing about criticizing other people and how that just getting rid of the complaints and getting rid of the criticizing can really help a lot of people just because it takes us out of that negative mindset. It really changes our consciousness about ourselves and others and starts to really release a lot of that. Antoinette, did you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add that, because we have that verbal component, whether it's spoken aloud or mentally, and there's the physical component, there's also the energetic component. So when we are criticizing, when we are complaining and bemoaning what's going on with us, energetically, that's a suppressive energy. And like in David Hawkins' Power versus Force, that would be on the lower level. And we start changing and shifting, because if we eliminate that or change our behavior, then we're able to keep our energy at a higher level.
Yeah.
And silence can help with that.
Yeah, just overall energy is going to help heal anything in our lives when we have more energy available to us. And then on page 42 is all of her denials that she has, like for any situation. And my favorite is always the last one, although I don't think I would add in the name of Jesus Christ, even though I know that's an old school. People used to do that and say that it gave more power. But the idea on number 9, there is nothing to oppose my good. There is no one to oppose my good. All obstacles and barriers to supremacy of spirit are now dissolved. So it's the idea of there's nothing or no one against me ever. So whatever that looks like a challenge or looks like it might be a speed bump trying to slow me down or oppose me, affirming this is like affirmation and denial all in one for me, because it affirms for me there is no one and nothing against me, that there is nothing to oppose my good, there is no one to oppose my good, all obstacles and barriers to the supremacy of spirit are now dissolved. That's my favorite one. So I hope that you can read through these and look for one that you think would help you in your life right now. Is there one that, if you're looking over the page, if you have the book, one that stands out to you?
Say anything?
No. Go ahead.
I think these are very much a challenge now in our lives. Nothing to fear, there's no evil. Nothing is evil which brings forth good. So if something doesn't bring forth good, it must be evil. And I don't want to believe in evil. Anyway,
Which one were you looking at?
number one,
There is no evil, nothing is evil which brings forth good.
yes, and
But
I
that
can
just means
believe.
there is no evil,
Yeah,
and only good shall come from this.
yeah,
Yeah. Evil is just the appearance of no law, basically. Evil is the appearance of God not at work. And the
got
law is
that,
always
right?
working. So if
Mhm.
you see someone who is out of alignment, they're still using the law. They're just not using it in the correct way. They're using it from a negative place. That law is still going to work. You're still going to
Uh-huh,
the same thing. The cause and effect, the law of cause and effect will always apply. It applies to everybody in every situation.
sure,
It's just
yes.
some people, they use it in a negative way. They use that law from fear. And we said that fear has the same power as gratitude, just
Mhm.
in reverse. So what we're seeing out there sometimes is people using that law from fear in a negative way.
Yes,
Causes
yeah.
issues. Yes. Still, what I love about it is the law still works. It works in every situation. So I can see that if I'm misusing it in the way that I'm still using the law, I'm using it from a lower vibration, it still works. I'm still attracting to me what it is I'm thinking. So now that I've done it, I can do the opposite. I can see people who've used it incorrectly, and I can make sure that I don't use it incorrectly. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, totally.
Yeah. So that really helps me to say there is no evil. That law of God works 100% of the time. Nothing is evil which brings forth good, and only good shall come from this. So these are
Mhm.
things that you could tweak a little bit into your own. Like I would have tweaked the one that I like. I think I'd tweak the end of it about the supremacy of spirit. I don't think I'd use those words. And I probably wouldn't say in the name of Jesus Christ, but I like the first part, and I'd tweak that for me to use for this week. So you just make them your own.
So if I, on number 6, say, there is no personality such as this in the universe, am I sort of disappearing that personality?
Wish it was that
Poof,
easy, right?
it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Well, and then the idea is in reality, personality isn't what we call reality because it is not everlasting. So even our personalities
Mhm.
are
Oh,
not,
yeah,
they're not everlasting
personality.
truth.
Mhm.
They're not pure and enduring. They're not the spirit of us. The personality is how we are expressing right now.
Mhm.
And so is that personality that we're not enjoying so much, that we come into contact with every day or on the news or wherever it may be.
Mhm.
So the
Have
personality
to work
really,
on that.
yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments about denials? Because I know that it's a shorter chapter, but I felt like I wanted to give it a lot of time because it is a basic unity concept. It is one of the fundamental teachings of unity. And that's why she calls it the first law. So I wanted to make sure we gave it the majority of the time, even though it's probably the shorter of the two chapters. All right, the surprise law of healing, chapter 3. She puts these kind of in the order of importance for her and the way that she thinks that we should use them and practice them. So we could start practicing right away and not have to wait until we've read the whole book to try. We should start denials first, and also the surprise law of healing. So I don't know if somebody'd like to read. We're going to skip down to the third paragraph. You can invoke the surprise law of healing. We'll just cut that introduction out there.
There.
You can invoke the surprise law of healing through Jesus, though Jesus pointed it out 20 centuries ago, Luke 5:20 through 26. The surprise law of healing is still a surprise to most people. It is the law of forgiveness. It is an immutable mental and spiritual law that when there is a health problem, there is a forgiveness problem. You must forgive if you want to be permanently healed. When you bypass forgiveness, you bypass permanent health. The surprise is in how many people try to find their way back to health without first cleansing their emotions of the cause of their diseases. Health cannot be accepted by a body that is filled with the poisons generated by unforgiveness. Ancient philosophers had a basic statement they used for healing. There is nothing to hate.
Thanks.
Pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what about this? The idea that even if you heal, healing is not permanent if we don't forgive, and that forgiveness is necessary for healing. What is our thoughts about that? What are our thoughts?
I agree with that. I agree with that. And I think that could be sometime because of, with the work that I've done with radical forgiveness, both personally and in facilitating Satori games, that it's kind of like dominoes. If we are willing to forgive and we work on what's showing up now, that can be like a domino effect. And anything that's related to that from your past can be healed. But a lot of times people aren't, and I've had my times where I thought I was willing. So there's a worksheet and you can go online to get a free worksheet for the radical forgiveness worksheet. And so it's like you check mark, I am willing. I am open to be willing to. And it goes through, I am open to be willing to possibly think about forgiveness, because it can be really hard for some people. And it is so powerful. It is so powerful, is the gift of forgiveness.
Thanks. Anyone else thoughts about forgiveness? In Ponder's eyes, you can probably see throughout this chapter, if you really go back and read through it, you can really tell that it's underscored by the idea that she believes there's always something for us to forgive and release. Wherever we are on our journey, There might be some big things that happened in our life that we've gotten past or we haven't gotten past that we know about. But even after we've gotten past some of those major things in our life that we couldn't get past when we were younger, as we get older, she is under the belief that every day there is something to forgive and release every single day, and that it can be a daily practice if we really want to get serious about any kind of prosperity, whether it's health or money or relationships, just happiness in general, going after whatever it is that we want. She's really pretty adamant in her books in general that if we are serious about it, we will do forgiveness work on a daily basis. Joyce?
I appreciate hearing that it's a daily practice, needs to be. I don't hold a lot of resentment, no hate toward others, but I find I have to work at forgiving myself, for my mistakes, for my transgressions. That's my work.
Yeah, thanks. Me too. I struggle with that too. And in the next section, she talks about this. Louise Hay talks about the same thing. If you've read Louise Hay's books, because Louise Hay had cancer, and she talks about how her resentments, she believes her resentments caused her cancer, and she believes that people who hold really adamant resentments are more prone to getting cancer than others. And Ponder says the exact same thing. It's the idea that, whatever is eating your mind eats your body. And literally, when it comes to cancer. And at the end, the very last paragraph on page 44, she says the nature of cancer may indicate some secret resentment or bitterness. Though one has been outwardly sweet and submissive, he has been inwardly grieved, hurt, intolerant, and severely critical. As in all forms of disease, unwise living habits are usually indicated too. That is the blessing of learning how to think right. As one employs proper thinking, he unconsciously relates it to a proper rest, diet, exercise, and other health habits. So the idea that releasing this kind of resentment also makes room for proper rest, diet, exercise, other healthy things that we might not be doing when we're holding on to some kind of unforgiveness or resentment. It blocks the flow, right? So if we're holding on to something negative, we learn about flow and that faucet again. Health is the same thing as our prosperity when we talk about money. Anything that blocks that flow of our health, even if we are fairly healthy now, we can think in the long run, that block is going to have consequences in the long run. So we're trying to get rid of anything that would block the flow of that thought. Does somebody want to read the naked on page 45, where I kind of left off? Negative emotions fasten disease to you. I think that's kind of an interesting idea. Like she literally saying that your negative emotions fastens the disease to you. I think it's kind of interesting. It's just kind of short. So anyone read that one?
I will.
Thanks. I think Bobby was trying, but he can't get himself unmuted. If you can't get yourself unmuted, maybe you can do the next next one, Bobby. That's on the phone. It's so much harder when you're
I
on the
see it.
phone. Oh, there
I
we go.
get it now.
He was like tapping and tapping and tapping.
What's working? You want me to do it or is she gonna do it?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Thanks. 45.
Okay. Negative emotions fasten disease to you. The act of forgiveness dissolves the negative attitudes and memories that are lodged in the conscious and subconscious levels of your mind. Since your mind is located right within your body, your thoughts and emotions occupy space in the cells, bloodstream, and organs of your physical being. Unless a mental and emotional cleansing takes place, such negative emotions fasten your health problems to you. In spite of advances in scientific and medical research, no pill has yet been created that can cause a sick person to do the first thing he should do metaphysically toward gaining permanent health? Forgive.
Thanks. How do we feel about that idea that these thoughts and emotions literally occupy space and fasten the disease to us? What do you think about that?
Hmm.
Think it's true? I think it's not true. Sounds right? Does it sound right? Sounds a little too far-fetched. I don't know.
I mean, it sounds true to me. And, every cell is intelligent, has its own, basically its own mind. So, really, I mean, when you carry these things or when you don't forgive, you're not really sure at the time what cell is holding on. So, I'm just thinking I need to try to touch each cell some way, some shape or form, but just the overall forgiveness uh, just makes sense to me. Why hold on something? Why allow something to rent space in your mind that it's not for that person, it's for you. You're trying to get rid of that because that person probably done forgot about it, and but you're still chewing on it, you're still holding on to it. So it's contaminating every part of your body, really.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's what they say about, like, if you put that other person, especially when your forgiveness is about another person, resentment is about another person, it's like putting that other person in jail, but then you're stuck in there with them. Joyce, did you want to add something to that?
Well, you asked a question about how thoughts can occupy space in the cells. I think she addressed that in in the introduction and first chapter, that like Bobby said, each cell has intelligence and they're all connected and share all the same fluid and light and energy. So it's helpful to think about that in terms of how embedded our thoughts and feelings are in our entire body.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. It really shows the depth of how far it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And then on page 46, on the next page, she talks about, in the middle of the page, the second paragraph, there's nothing unpleasant or embarrassing about the act of forgiveness. Your forgiveness ceremony can be very simple. To forgive does not mean that you have to bow or scrape to those you feel have offended you. To forgive means to give for, to replace the ill feeling, to gain a sense of peace and harmony again. To forgive literally means to give up that which you should not have held to in the first place. So this means that you don't have to reconcile with another person. If it's yourself, that's a little different. I mean, the whole idea is to get to wholeness. So you're literally reconciling yourself. You're putting yourself back together. You're allowing that part that you're resenting about yourself, the guilt or the unforgiveness, to go so you can remember yourself, remember who you are, a wholeness, all oneness, which is really important. But we are not meant to have to go to a person and say anything to them in order for this to happen. But she does say in several parts that when we do this, we release them too. But it's really not for them. It's really for us. However, we break that connection for the both of us. So we're releasing the energy attached to all that old stuff is what we're doing. And we're giving that up. We're not having to forget. It's not forgive and forget, and it's not reconciliation. And she also says on here, it's not our job to go back and change those people's minds. Like, well, they should have done this if I could just make them see. Like, people are stuck in their own stuff. I mean, we're stuck on our stuff. They're stuck in their stuff. So, and some people are stuck on a really low level and just aren't in their journey and a place where they can see what it is. And it's not our job because we don't even know what it is for them. We can't ever know another person's path anyway. We can't ever know that maybe somewhere that stuck thinking is there for them because it's serving them. The idea that there's no one or nothing against me means there's no one or nothing against them either. And this challenge that they're facing that would make them act in that way might be something on their path that I can't see. I don't know what's best for anybody in their own spiritual journey.
Jen, on that?
I totally believe the power of forgiveness and letting go of resentment and anger, whatever. But the challenge sometimes with forgiveness, if that person, it's not in the past, that it continues, the pattern continues rather than being something in the past. There's a different solution to that in terms of negating the power of those offenses.
Right. We never want to stay in a situation where we're continuing to be hurt either. So like creating a boundary is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's a really, harmful situation, just not being, if it's a person we don't have to be around,
Right.
Maybe a boundary is not enough. Maybe it's that we can't be around that person at all. So we don't forgive and then continue to stay in a hurtful situation either. So you're completely right, Joyce. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then she says how to forgive on 47. And instead of reading that whole thing, if somebody could just read the first 2 paragraphs of that on 47, because she talked about her idea of daily forgiveness, and this is where she talks about it.
I don't mind.
Thanks.
You want me to start where?
How to forgive, and just do those 2 first paragraphs.
Okay. How to forgive. There's a simple way you can practice forgiveness. Daily meditate upon and speak forth these words. All that has offended me, I forgive. Whatever has made me bitter, resentful, unhappy, I forgive. Within and without, I forgive. Things past, things present, things future, I forgive. Sometimes you have to persist. Your first act of forgiveness may not bring the changed attitude and peace that you seek, but will bring improvement. You did not build up those resentments with the one strong negative thought. Neither will one strong positive thought sweep them all away.
Thank you.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And I like that her general denial or her general affirmation there for forgiveness there, because I feel like you could insert whatever you needed to for the day in there, right? So it's like a reminder to search your mind for, is there anything that made you bitter, resentful, or unhappy in the past or in the future? Is there anything in that day that you could add to it? So that's how I see it. It's kind of like when I speak these words, and then I can kind of sit back and think to myself and kind of rerun my day and even think about in myself, is there anything that I need to forgive myself for, like shoulding on myself? I thought that's my biggest thing, like I should have done this, or I should have done that differently. And I'm really negative about the should instead of just being factual about this one. Well, this didn't go well. I should all about it. And then this would, just these things can remind me through the day. I can go through my day and look for anything I did, anything anyone did to me, kind of search for, and take a time in prayer to offer forgiveness for anything, because it covers everything.
Yeah.
All that has offended me, I forgive. Whatever has made me bitter, resentful, unhappy, I forgive. Within and without, I forgive. Things past, things present. And then reminding myself that I'm going to forgive in the future too. Like, guess what? Tomorrow I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm reminding myself that as much as possible, this is a practice that I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Anything else there? Any ideas about that? we just got a few more things before we end. So again, in this chapter, she talks about those energetic bonds, and just like evil, in this chapter, she talks about the power of hate and how hate is kind of like love and gratitude in opposition, and hate and fear. Remember that law is still working, and people can work from that law from hate just as well as they can work from love. And it's just it's not the actual absence of love, it's just that they are not seeing love. They are not seeing it. And so they use that law from that state of consciousness. On 51, it says the binding power of hate. And it's just that first paragraph there. When you hold resentment towards another, you are bound to that person or condition by an emotional link that is stronger than steel. Forgiveness is the only way to dissolve that link and get free. So she just reiterates that so many times, because it's that attracting power of hate is the same as the attracting power of love. It's just negative, lower vibration brings about really bad things. Antoinette?
That makes so much sense because when I think about it, I'm energetically plugged into the past and to that specific event, and I'm keeping it alive by not forgiving. And when I forgive, I disconnect that energy cord, or I'm unplugging. If we imagine a power strip, what am I plugged into? And if I unplug it, then I've taken away. It's like I'm not saying that it never happened. I'm not saying that there wasn't any other thing with it. I'm just not giving it any power, and I can move to this state of a compassionate witness by doing that, instead of always having my energy plugged into something from the past, which keeps me from being present to this precious present moment.
Yeah, thanks. And I think that's why she includes this so closely with denial, right? Because it's still, it's another way of releasing what no longer serves us, releasing something that is not true, so that we can have more of the good, more of God show up. So it's nothing to be healed, only God to be revealed. This is another way to give something, to let something go in order to reveal more God. And along the lines of that, when you're talking about like letting that thing take up residence, on 53, the one thing I like when you are talking about other people and not yourself, it could even actually apply to yourself. But I really like the way she says a forgiveness formula. And in the second paragraph here, she talks about they. And I'm thinking to myself, now that it just kind of occurred to me, I could replace that with me too. I have not really failed or disappointed myself. So they have not really failed nor disappointed you. They have not even let you down. They may have stumbled while crossing your path, but in reality, they are sons of God who temporarily lost their way. And, you know, I can see myself the same way. So when I am not seeing forgiveness in myself, that I'm a child of God who temporarily lost my way, and I'm using that same law, I'm just using it from, a lower vibration. I was using it from fear or lack or, some other lower form. And it talks about if they crossed your path, it was because they needed and wanted your blessing. They were unconsciously looking to you to be steadied and set right. Your progress has not been hindered. No matter what they did, they cannot keep your good from you. They crossed your path by divine appointment, even though they seem to hurt you for a while. When people bother you in any way, it is because their souls are trying to get your divine attention and your blessing. Give them that, and they will no longer bother you as they fade out of your life and find their good elsewhere. Meanwhile, divine restoration will occur in your own affairs. Now that having said that, it's still like, well, we don't want people to continually doing harm and allow that to happen, wanting them to fade out of our lives when they don't. And saying that sometimes that does happen too. But I like to think about myself as also when Joyce, when you're talking about, sometimes it's ourself that's hardest to forgive, that I can also see that for me too. That it was by divine appointment, and I've, learned something, and I've noticed now, set myself back on the right path. But it's interesting to think about somebody else that way too.
Sandy, I'm still stuck back on 48.
Yep.
The only requirement is that you willingly speak words of forgiveness and let those words do their cleansing work after the woman had a dream.
Yeah.
But because sometimes I'm not really clear that there are others that I have to forgive. I think I've forgiven and let go, don't hate. But I think if I do a generalized forgiveness, everything and everybody who can possibly need forgiveness in my path and present, I forgive possibly everyone. I think that's going to work for me.
Yeah, good. I like that. I like to know if you work with that for a while, how that works out for you.
Okay.
Yeah. See if it really does. I mean, I like the energy, I like the vibration that gives. Yeah. And then towards the end, it's not the very end, but I do want to draw to it before we leave here. It starts on 57 and goes over to 58, where she talks about Charles Fillmore. She talks about his experience with healing, and she relates back to his forgiveness practices. It starts there, but she kind of redoes his forgiveness practice and makes a general forgiveness prayer, or that she puts that on 58 at the end of that section, that when it talks about Fillmore, it's called a sure remedy. And on 58, she puts it in that bold kind of her italics whenever she gives an affirmation or a denial. She's got that a little bit different. So it's a paragraph, an all-inclusive prayer of forgiveness. Is there somebody who wants to read the all-inclusive prayer of forgiveness? I thought that would be a really good way for us to end, is to read that.
I can read it.
Thank you.
An all-inclusive prayer of forgiveness is this: I forgive everything, everyone, every experience, every memory of the past or present that needs forgiveness. I forgive positively everyone. God is love, and I am forgiven and governed by God's love alone. God's love is now adjusting my life and its problems. Realizing this, I abide in peace.
Thank you. It's nice because it's really got that affirmative ending. So it does the release of the forgiveness. And then it also comes in with this truth statement about how I am forgiven and I am governed by God's love alone. Love is now adjusting my life. And that sounds so, I love that part when it says love is now adjusting my life. I abide in peace. So that's kind of like the one you were talking about, Joyce, but it just goes a little step farther there. It's a little bit more word. It's got a few more pieces to it there. So I'm interested to know if you try using one or the other. If you want to do both, that's good, but we've got one or the other. You can try using denials, try using some forgiveness. Maybe you're called to do one or the other on different days over the next week, how it goes for you. Kind of interested to know if you try anything, how it works out. And next week, I know it's kind of a longer class, but it's ambitious to do 2 chapters a week. We've got 4 and 5 on tap for next week. All right. Well, I'm really glad that you all joined me, and I'm enjoying reading it, and I hope you are too.
Yes, very much so, Sandy. Thank you very much for class.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So have a great week, and I'll send out the notes, and then I have some of those forgiveness and denials to attach onto there.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you, everyone.
Thank
Blessings
you.
to you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
week, everybody.
Mhm.
Thank you. You do likewise.
Thank you.